So boundaries, what are boundaries? Boundaries are those beautiful lines that we draw in the sand that identify to others what we will and won't accept in our lives. The treatment, how others treat us. Our boundaries are those lines around us that identify what we are willing to accept for ourselves. Yeah, what we are willing to create for ourselves. So boundaries are really important. They're so important. They are important lines that contribute to you, that contribute to your mental health and well-being. They contribute to your emotional health and well-being. They contribute to you and your energy. Yeah, you will find when people cross your boundaries that you end up in spaces of duress. You're stressed, you are distressed, you are not happy. Yeah, so those are the times where you can identify where your boundaries need to be. Yeah, so in those instances where things are happening, people are doing things around you and you are not happy, you are stressed, you are uncomfortable, then you need to give some thought and feel into whether there are boundaries that need to be put in place, what those boundaries are, and how you can implement them. Yep, implementing them often means sharing them with other people, letting them know where your boundaries are, where your lines are, and giving them the information so that the choice is theirs whether they cross it or not. So one of the very simplest and most basic examples I can give around boundaries is being a mum. You know, being a mum is like, it's an amazing, incredible position to be in. All too often, we get sucked into this whirlpool of being available 100% of the time, always available to those in our family, to our children. Yeah. The classic example is going to the toilet. When we go to the toilet, how many times have mums been on the toilet and they've got little ones on the floor, or they've got little ones banging on the door, they've got little ones screaming for attention. Mum can't even take 5 minutes, not even 2 minutes, to go to the bathroom on her own. That is the most classic example of where no boundaries exist. Yeah, no boundaries exist in that moment. And it's also that classic example of being able to take that as an opportunity to begin to implement some boundaries. Now with children, it's obviously a little more challenging because they're still developing. Their little brains are still developing, and comprehending everything that we're saying is not necessarily an easy task. However, there are some simple ways that we can simply instruct them around the fact that we're off to the toilet. Well, I'm on the toilet. You might be over here playing and you will wait for me to come back out to you. Yeah. Not communicating with them when they're banging on the door, allowing yourself the time and the space to disengage. That also creates the boundary, and it also enforces the boundary. Yeah, so it's a beautiful example and analogy around boundaries that I find really it's so simple to understand when you bring that into the mother-child dynamic. Yeah. So if we then step a little further and really understand that our boundaries are identifying to others what we are willing to accept in our lives, there are obviously times, places and spaces where we really are required to draw those lines heavily in the ground. Yeah. So you're looking at the way people treat you. If people are treating you with disrespect, if people are abusing you, if people are neglecting you, your lines, your boundaries are there to identify what you are willing to accept in your life. Yeah? Our boundaries. Our boundaries may require us to cut people off. So when we are identifying that there is a level of behavior and interaction with others that we are willing to accept or unwilling to accept, then our boundaries come into play and we spend time shoring them up. And we do this in ways that, as I've said already, we allow those close to us to know what our boundaries are. If you treat me this way, then the consequences or the result of that is going to be, I don't want to spend more time, I don't want to spend any more time with you. Yeah. So when they come into play, when we identify what we're willing to accept, when we're ready to put in those boundaries that allow others to know what we are willing and unwilling to accept in our lives, it may require us to do some cutting of ties, disengaging from those around us, breaking away, disconnecting, letting go of people who are not willing to treat you any better than they previously have been. It may be a case of letting go of those who aren't willing to shift and change in order to create something better for you and for them. Yeah. That is hard. That is challenging to do. It's challenging to cut all ties. However, it is necessary. It is absolutely necessary to cut ties with those who are unwilling at this present time to respect your boundaries and treat you according to what you find acceptable behavior. Yeah. So on that, with our boundaries, we are simply wanting people around us who contribute to our lives, to our existence, to our mental and emotional health and well-being in constructive and positive ways. Yes, that can look uncomfortable at times. Yeah, but your boundaries being in place, your boundaries there, identifying what you're willing to accept from those around you, will ensure that any of those uncomfortable moments, disagreements perhaps, don't escalate and go into places or behaviors that aren't acceptable within the relationship. Yeah. So let's just take a moment to drum some of that out. We're going to drum some of that out. So what I mean by drumming out is just giving ourselves the opportunity to shift some energy around creating those boundaries, around implementing those boundaries, and around trusting those boundaries. So trusting the boundaries is a big thing. And it's a really big thing because we don't all see life the same way. Yeah? So what you may think of as unacceptable behavior, someone around you may think it's okay. That behavior is acceptable. Yeah? So we're just going to drum that shift and probably create some allowance around the fact that our boundaries are our boundaries and they are what we find or feel is necessary for our own emotional, mental, physical, spiritual health and well-being. Yeah? They're about us, about what we're willing to tolerate, about what we're willing to accept in our lives. And if we are unwilling to accept what those around us are giving to us, then it is totally okay, more than okay, to let them go. Send them away on their own path. Send them away to live their own lives, to grow in their own time, and to come back to you if and when they are willing to change and interact with you in behavior, ways that are acceptable to you, that contribute to you. Because when those around you are behaving in acceptable ways, then you are certainly a positive contribution to them as well. Okay, so boundaries, they're beautiful. They identify the behaviors that we are willing to accept in our lives. They are challenging to identify because those boundaries mean disrupting or disturbing patterns of behaviors and interactions within relationships that may not have been fully acceptable to you in the first place. Boundaries illuminate the way you've been treated. So it's totally fine for you to identify those boundaries, to draw them heavily in the sand, and to draw them in ways where you know that you are serving yourself, your health and well-being, your whole self in positive ways. So, if boundaries are something that you are really wanting to implement, required to implement, my advice and my guidance to you is to identify what is acceptable behavior to you. Draw those lines in the sand. Disconnect from those who are already consistently overstepping those lines. Let them go. Disconnect from them. Know that you are doing what is best for your body, heart, mind, and soul. And invite people to come into your life who treat you in ways that are acceptable to you, that are beneficial to you, that contribute to your health and well-being.